The massive observation window of the United Galactic Council's flagship stretched from floor to ceiling, offering a perfect view of the mysterious fleet that drifted silently in the void. Dr. Marcus pressed his hand against the cold glass, his eyes fixed on the ancient vessels that seemed to absorb the light from nearby stars rather than reflect it. "Fascinating," he whispered, his breath creating a small fog patch on the window. "These ships must be thousands of years old, yet their hull integrity remains nearly perfect." Behind him, Admiral Reed let out an annoyed grunt. The military advisor to the council had better things to do than babysit an archaeologist on what he considered a waste of time. "They're just space junk, Doctor. Remnants of some long-dead civilization that couldn't figure out proper ship design. Look at how bulky and crude they are." Dr. Marcus turned away from the window, his eyes bright with excitement despite the Admiral's dismissive tone. "That's just it, Admiral. These ships weren't built for speed or maneuverability. They were built to last. The engineering principles here are extraordinary." "Extraordinary." Reed scoffed, gesturing at the holographic display, showing detailed scans of the derelict fleet. "Those designs are primitive. No plasma drives, no quantum shielding, not even basic gravity manipulation. They're practically museum pieces." The archaeologist moved to the holographic display, his fingers dancing across the controls as he zoomed in on various sections of the lead ship. "Look closer, Admiral. These ships have redundant systems layered upon redundant systems. The hull isn't just thick, it's regenerative. And these power readings." He paused, double-checking the data. "They're unlike anything in our records." A junior officer rushed into the observation room, her uniform slightly disheveled in her haste. "Dr. Marcus, we've detected unusual radiation signatures from the fleet. Well, sir, they're pulsing." Reed straightened, his hand instinctively moving to the weapon at his hip. "Pulsing. Why wasn't I informed immediately?" "Because it's not dangerous, Admiral," Dr. Marcus said, already analyzing the new data streaming across his tablet. "The radiation pattern is regular, almost like a heartbeat." His eyes widened. "Or a hibernation cycle." The Admiral moved closer to the window, studying the fleet with newfound wariness. The ships were massive, easily dwarfing the Council's flagship. Their dark hulls were angular and fortress-like, lacking the sleek curves and elegant design of modern vessels. Yet there was something about them that made him uneasy, like looking at the fossilized remains of an ancient predator and sensing the deadly power it once possessed. "How many ships are we talking about?" Reed asked, his voice quieter now. Dr. Marcus consulted his tablet. 27 capital ships, each roughly twice the size of our largest battlecruisers, plus numerous smaller support vessels. Initial estimates suggest the fleet could have housed upwards of 50,000 crew members. Could have. Past tense. "Well, we haven't detected any life signs. But," Marcus hesitated, "these ships were clearly designed for extremely long-term operation. The engineering is actually quite brilliant, just in ways we wouldn't expect. Modern ships are built to be fast, efficient, and easily maintained. These," he gestured at the fleet, "these were built to endure, to survive anything the universe could throw at them, for thousands of years, if necessary." Reed was about to respond when another officer entered, carrying the data crystal. "Dr. Marcus, the initial analysis of the ship's outer markings is complete. You'll want to see this." Marcus accepted the crystal and plugged it into his tablet. As he read, the color drained from his face. "What is it?" Reed demanded. "The markings." Marcus swallowed hard. "They're not just decorative. They're data stamps. Manufacturing dates, crew manifests, mission parameters, and, sir, some of the language structure. It shares basic patterns with ancient human binary code." Reed laughed, the sound echoing off the observation room's walls. "Human. That's impossible. Humans only achieved FTL travel 3 centuries ago. These ships are obviously thousands of years old." Tens of thousands, actually, Marcus corrected quietly. Which makes this discovery either a cosmic coincidence, or what? Reed prompted. Marcus looked back at the ancient fleet, his voice barely above a whisper. Or everything we thought we knew about human history is wrong. Outside the window, the massive ships continued their eternal vigil, their secrets still locked away in layers of dormant technology and encrypted data cores, waiting to be awakened. The boarding party's magnetic boots clicked against the ancient ship's metal floor as they made their way through its dark corridors. Their helmet lights cast long shadows that danced across walls covered in strange, geometric patterns. Dr. Marcus led the group, his hand running along the wall as if trying to absorb the ship's history through touch alone. The air recycling systems are still working, one of the technicians said, checking his instruments. After all this time, how is that even possible? Marcus smiled behind his helmet visor. That's what makes these ships so remarkable. They weren't built to be cutting edge. They were built to work forever. Admiral Reed brought up the rear of the group, his hand never far from his weapon. Save the admiration for later, Doctor. We're here to find the command center and access their data cores, nothing more. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that their lights couldn't fully illuminate. As they entered, motion sensors that had waited millennia activated. Soft blue lighting slowly filled the room, revealing rows of curved control panels and a central command chair that looked more like a throne. It's powered? Reed asked, incredulous. How? Before Marcus could answer, the technician's instruments began beeping urgently. Sir, we're detecting a massive power source beneath the floor. It's not like anything in our database. Marcus rushed to the nearest control panel, his archaeologist's caution forgotten in excitement. These aren't just displays. They're interfaces for a quantum computer network. The processing power must be enormous. Can you access it? Reed asked, his skepticism giving way to curiosity. I believe. Marcus pressed his hand against the panel. It lit up at his touch, and holographic displays sprang to life around the room. Yes, the system recognizes basic biological input. It's not completely alien technology after all. The technicians spread out, scanning everything. One of them called out, Doctor, I think I found the main data core access point. They gathered around a cylindrical column that rose from floor to ceiling. Marcus studied the interface, then pressed a sequence of controls. With a soft hum, the column split open, revealing a crystalline structure that pulsed with inner light. Incredible, Marcus breathed. The data storage system. It's using quantum crystalline matrices. We've only theorized about such technology. The amount of data this could hold. Reed stepped closer. Can you read it? Give me a moment. Marcus connected his tablet to the interface. The encryption is unlike anything I've... Wait. He frowned. This can't be right. What is it? The base coding language. It's definitely related to human binary. Not just similar, it's an ancestral form. More complex, more elegant, but the basic structure is unmistakable. Reed shook his head. That's impossible. When these ships were built, humans were still figuring out basic spaceflight. We didn't even have colonies beyond Mars. According to our history, yes. Marcus's fingers flew across his tablet. But look at this. He projected a comparison of the ship's code and ancient human binary. The pattern matching is beyond coincidence. This is like finding out your great-great-grandfather's handwriting matches yours exactly. A laugh echoed through the chamber. Everyone turned to see Council Member Peters, who had joined their expedition, standing in the doorway. Are you suggesting, Doctor, that primitive humans built this magnificent fleet? Humans who needed our help to perfect FTL travel, who still struggle with basic gravity manipulation. The evidence, Marcus began, is circumstantial at best, Peters interrupted. Perhaps this ancient civilization based their code on primitive human signals they detected. Or perhaps it's simply a cosmic coincidence. But humans building this, he gestured around the chamber. laughable. Suddenly, the room's lights flickered. The holographic displays wavered, then stabilized, showing new information. Marcus stared at the readings, his face pale. "Doctor," Reed prompted. "The system. It's responding to our conversation. It's waking up." Marcus looked around the chamber with wide eyes. "And it's not just a computer network. It's a true AI. Ancient, but fully conscious." The lights pulsed, and a deep hum filled the chamber. On every display, symbols began appearing. Symbols that slowly transformed into modern human language. The message was simple: "Children of Earth, welcome home." The command center hummed with energy as displays flickered to life one after another. Council member Peters had backed away from the central console, his earlier mockery forgotten as the ancient ship stirred around them. "Doctor, shut it down," Admiral Reed ordered, his hand now firmly on his weapon. I can't," Marcus replied, his fingers dancing across his tablet. "The AI is bypassing all our attempts at control. It's not just this ship, the whole fleet is waking up." Through the massive bridge windows, they watched as lights began appearing across the other vessels. It was like watching a metal city come to life in the darkness of space. "Children of Earth," the AI's voice echoed through the chamber, its tone deep and somehow familiar. "Protocol 7 has been initiated. The threat approaches." "What threat?" Reed demanded. "Identify yourself." Holographic screens materialized around them, showing star maps and trajectory calculations. A red line traced its way across the galaxy, originating from somewhere in intergalactic space. "I am Guardian," the AI responded, "created by the first fleet of humanity to protect Earth and all sentient life from the coming storm. My sensors detect that 15,000 years have passed since my activation. The enemy approaches exactly as predicted." Peters laughed nervously. "This is absurd. There is no threat to Earth or the galaxy. Our deep space sensors would have detected any approaching force." "Your sensors are blind to what comes," Guardian replied. The star map zoomed in on a particular region of space. "The storm travels through dimensional layers your civilization has not yet discovered. My creators built me to detect and combat this threat." Marcus stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. "Your creators? You're saying humans built you? 15,000 years ago?" "Correct. Humanity achieved technological advancement far beyond your current level. When they detected the approaching threat, they knew they had two choices: maintain their civilization and hope future generations would be ready, or sacrifice their advancement to build a guardian fleet that would endure until the moment of need." The ship shuddered as ancient engines powered up. Outside, the other vessels were also coming to life, their massive forms shifting into a defensive formation. "They chose sacrifice," Guardian continued. "They built this fleet using technology designed not for elegance, but for eternal endurance. Then they voluntarily regressed their civilization, erasing all evidence of their advancement. Only I remained, sleeping among the stars, waiting for this moment." Reed's tactical training kicked in. "You expect us to believe that humans, at their height, chose to give up their advancement. Why not just prepare their descendants?" The AI's response was immediate. "Power corrupts. Technologies can be misused. They feared their descendants might use their advanced knowledge for conquest rather than defense. Better to let humanity advance naturally, guided by their own wisdom, while I waited to protect them." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. New holographic displays appeared, showing readings that made the technicians gasp. "What is it?" Marcus asked. "The storm's vanguard has breached into normal space," Guardian announced. "Your modern sensors will detect them soon, but by then it will be too late. The main force follows close behind. Without this fleet, your civilizations will fall." Through the windows, they watched as the ancient vessels moved with surprising grace, their massive forms gliding into battle positions. Energy signatures unlike anything in modern science emanated from their hulls. "I don't have time to convince you of the truth," Guardian said. The evidence of humanity's past glory will reveal itself soon enough. For now, you have a choice. Stay and witness what comes, or return to your ship. Either way, I must begin my mission." Reed looked at Marcus, then at Peters, whose face had lost all its previous arrogance. "Doctor, what do you think?" Before Marcus could answer, space itself seemed to tear open at the edge of the system. Through the breach poured ships of impossible geometries, their forms hurting the eyes that tried to track them. "The Vanguard arrives," Guardian announced calmly. "Now you will understand why the ancient humans sacrificed everything to prepare for this moment. The storm has come, and only the forgotten legacy stands between it and the death of all you know." The ancient ship's command center transformed into a three-dimensional theater of war. Holographic displays showed the approaching enemy vessels, their impossible shapes twisting through space in ways that defied physics. Admiral Reed watched with professional interest as Guardian coordinated the fleet's response. "Remarkable," he muttered. "The formation algorithms are perfect. Better than anything we have today." Dr. Marcus barely heard him. He was absorbed in the data streaming across his tablet as Guardian shared the historical records stored in its memory banks. "This is incredible," he said. "The full history of ancient humanity. It's all here." Peters leaned over his shoulder. "Show us." The central hologram shifted, displaying scenes from Earth's distant past. They watched as ancient humans built cities that put their modern counterparts to shame. Vessels of elegant design soared between the stars. Medical technology eliminated disease. Energy was abundant and free. 15,000 years ago, Guardian narrated, humanity had reached heights your civilization has yet to imagine. They had solved the greatest mysteries of physics, mastered the manipulation of matter and energy, and spread their influence across 1,000 worlds. "What happened?" Marcus asked, though the dread in his voice suggested he already knew. "They detected the storm." The hologram showed a massive cosmic disturbance moving between galaxies, an entity that devours civilizations. It had already consumed 12 galaxies, absorbing their knowledge and technology, growing stronger with each conquest. Humanity's scientists calculated it would reach Earth in approximately 15,000 years. The images shifted to show great debates in vast halls. The Council of Earth faced a terrible choice. Guardian continued. They could maintain their civilization's advancement, hoping future generations would be ready to face the storm. But they saw how power had corrupted other species, how advanced technology often led to civil wars and destruction. Reed nodded slowly, understanding dawning on his face. So they chose to protect their descendants by building this fleet, and then deliberately regressing their civilization. "Yes," Guardian confirmed. "They poured all their knowledge, their most advanced technology, into building vessels that would endure the ages. Ships that appeared primitive to discourage interference, but contained power your modern science cannot yet comprehend." The hologram showed the construction of the fleet. Massive vessels built with layer upon layer of redundant systems, powered by artificial quantum stars, equipped with weapons that could reshape reality itself. But why make humanity start over? Peters asked, his earlier skepticism replaced by fascination. "Because they knew that power without wisdom leads to destruction," Guardian replied. "They chose to let humanity advance naturally, learning its own lessons, developing its own wisdom. They left only subtle guidances, subconscious memories encoded in human DNA that would draw their descendants back to the stars when the time was right." The ship shuddered as the first shots of the battle were fired. Through the windows, they watched as beams of pure darkness lanced out from the storm's vanguard ships. The ancient fleet responded with weapons that bent space itself, creating localized time distortions that trapped enemy vessels in temporal loops. "The storm is testing our defenses," Guardian announced. "The main force will arrive soon. Now, watch and understand what your ancestors sacrificed everything to build." The hologram showed the final days of ancient humanity's golden age. Scientists working tirelessly to encode their knowledge into Guardian systems. engineers testing and retesting the fleet's systems, and finally, the activation of devices that would remove all traces of their advanced civilization from human history. Your ancestors knew that facing the storm would require not just advanced technology, but the wisdom to use it properly, Guardian explained. They trusted that when the time came, their descendants would have developed that wisdom naturally, without the corruption that comes from too much power too quickly. Marcus looked up from his tablet, tears in his eyes. They gave up everything to protect us. Yes, Guardian said simply. And now, 15,000 years later, their sacrifice will bear fruit. The storm comes, and humanity's forgotten legacy stands ready to defend not just Earth, but all sentient life in the galaxy. Outside, the battle intensified as more enemy ships poured through the dimensional breach. The ancient fleet moved with practiced precision, its weapons unleashing powers that modern science had yet to discover. The time had come for humanity to reclaim its heritage and face the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. The bridge of the ancient flagship shook as another wave of enemy fire washed over its defenses. Dr. Marcus gripped the edge of a console to keep his balance, watching in awe as what had seemed like primitive, bulky ships demonstrated their true power. Those hull plates you mocked for being too thick. Guardian's voice held a hint of pride. Each one contains billions of self-repairing nanomachines. They don't just protect the ship. They learn from each attack and adapt. Admiral Reed studied the tactical displays with growing respect. The enemy's weapons, they're unlike anything we've ever seen. They're not just firing energy weapons. They're trying to unravel the fabric of space itself. Correct, Guardian confirmed. The storm doesn't just destroy civilizations. It consumes their knowledge, their technology, their very essence. But watch what happens when they hit our shields. Through the massive bridge windows, they saw an enemy beam strike the fleet's defenses. Instead of trying to block or deflect the attack, the ancient shield somehow absorbed it, channeled it, and redirected it back at the enemy vessels. Your modern shields try to be walls, Guardian explained. Ours are more like rivers, flowing, adapting, using the enemy's strength against them. This is the wisdom your ancestors built into every system. Peters moved closer to the window, his face illuminated by the flashes of battle. You called them primitive, he said softly, speaking to himself as much as the others. But everything about these ships was built with purpose. Look at the weapon systems, Guardian continued. The holographic displays showed cutaway diagrams of the fleet's armaments. No wasted energy, no unnecessary complexity. They appear simple because they work with the fundamental forces of the universe, not against them. As if to demonstrate, one of the fleet's ships fired what looked like a simple beam of light. When it struck an enemy vessel, the target simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no debris. It simply faded from reality. What was that? Marcus asked, breathless. A quantum uncertainty cannon, Guardian replied. It doesn't destroy its target. It makes the universe forget the target ever existed in the first place. The technology appears primitive because it's built on basic principles of quantum mechanics. Your modern weapons are like throwing rocks compared to rewriting the laws of physics themselves. The ship's AI brought up new displays, showing the intricate internal systems of the fleet. What had seemed like oversized, clunky engines were revealed to be monuments to elegant engineering. Your ancestors understood that true advancement isn't about making things more complex, Guardian explained. It's about understanding things so completely that you can make them simple. These ships don't need constant maintenance or upgrades because they were built on principles that will remain true until the end of time itself. A message flashed across the tactical displays. More enemy ships were emerging from the dimensional breach. But now, instead of fear, the humans felt a growing sense of confidence as they watched their ancestors' legacy in action. There's a message, Guardian said, encoded in the core of every ship in this fleet. Would you like to hear what your ancestors wanted you to know? Marcus nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. The ancient AI's voice took on a solemn tone as it recited, "To our children's children, we give up our present so you may have a future. We could have passed this burden to you, forced you to live in fear of what approaches. Instead, we choose to be your guardians through the ages. All we built, all we achieved, we gladly sacrifice so that you may grow in wisdom and face this threat not with fear, but with understanding. The fleet we leave you appears simple, but within it lies the culmination of all human knowledge. Use it well, use it wisely, and know that every generation of humanity that came before you believed in your potential." As the message ended, the enemy fleet launched a massive attack. The ancient ships moved as one, their supposedly primitive systems working in perfect harmony. What had once looked like outdated, bulky vessels now moved with deadly grace, each action precise and purposeful. "They laughed at these ships," Reed said quietly. "But our ancestors knew something we've forgotten. True power doesn't need to show off. True wisdom doesn't need to prove itself. It simply works, endures, and protects." The battle raged on, humanity's forgotten legacy standing firm against the darkness between galaxies. Every shot fired a testament to the sacrifice and foresight of those who had come before. The United Galactic Council's emergency chamber was filled to capacity. Representatives from 100 species watched the live feed from the battle, their earlier mockery replaced by stunned silence. The ancient human fleet danced through space, its supposedly primitive vessels defeating technology that should have been far superior. Council leader Thompson stood at the central podium, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "The Storm's main fleet will arrive within 12 hours. Our deep space sensors are now detecting them, just as Guardian warned. We need to make a decision." "What decision?" asked the Centaurian representative. "Those human ships are holding their own. Let them handle it." Dr. Marcus, who had returned to address the council, shook his head. "Guardian tells us this is just the vanguard. The main fleet is 1,000 times larger. The ancient ships are powerful, but they'll need help. Help from our inferior vessels." The Proximan delegate's scales rattled with nervous laughter. "What could we possibly offer?" Admiral Reed stepped forward. "Guardian has shared some of the fleet's basic principles with us. The technology isn't actually more advanced than ours. It's just purer, more fundamental. With their help, we can modify our ships to work alongside them." The chamber erupted in argument. Some representatives demanded immediate evacuation of their worlds. Others wanted to surrender to the Storm. A few even suggested trying to negotiate. "Enough." Thompson's voice cut through the chaos. "Look at the screens. While we argue, those ships, built by humans who sacrificed everything to protect not just their own species, but all of us, are fighting for our survival." The chamber fell silent as they watched another enemy vessel vanish under the ancient fleet's weapons. Guardian's voice, now patched into all council communications, spoke. "The Storm cannot be negotiated with. It does not seek conquest. It seeks consumption. It will not stop until it has absorbed all knowledge, all technology, all life in this galaxy." Marcus activated a hologram in the center of the chamber. "These are Guardian's projections of the Storm's path through our galaxy. No world will be spared. No species will survive, unless we stand together." "But why?" asked a younger delegate. "Why did ancient humans give up their advancement to build this fleet? Why not just prepare their descendants to face this threat?" "Because they understood something we've all forgotten," Reed answered. "True strength isn't about having the most advanced technology. It's about wisdom, about knowing when to set aside pride and work together. They didn't just build ships, they built a legacy of protection for all sentient life." On the screens, they watched as the ancient fleet executed another perfect maneuver. Enemy ships, twisted and wrong in ways that hurt to look at, fired weapons that bent reality itself. But the human vessels, with their thick hulls and seemingly basic design, absorbed or deflected every attack. Our modern ships are faster, Thompson said, more maneuverable, if we can adapt them to work with the ancient fleet's principles. He looked around the chamber. We're not being asked to sacrifice everything like they did. We're just being asked to set aside our pride and help. Slowly, heads began to nod. The Centaurian representative stood. Our ships are yours to command. Others joined in, offering their fleets, their resources, their support. Guardian's voice held a note of approval. Your ancestors would be proud. They believed that when the moment came, their descendants would choose wisdom over pride, unity over division. Now let me show you how to prepare for what comes. As the council chamber transformed into a war room, with species that had once competed now working together, Marcus found himself staring at the ancient fleet on the screens. They must have known, he said quietly, known that facing this threat would require more than just powerful ships. It would need the galaxy to unite. Reed nodded. And what better way to unite us than to show us how wrong we were? How wisdom can hide in what we thought was primitive. How strength can look like simplicity. The screens showed more dimensional breaches opening. The Storm's main fleet was arriving early. But now, as modern ships began taking up formation alongside their ancient guardians, there was no more laughter. Only determination, respect, and a growing understanding of what humanity's ancestors had sacrificed to give them this chance. Space itself seemed to burn as the Storm's main fleet emerged from 1,000-dimensional breaches. Their twisted ships darkened the stars, their impossible forms stretching from horizon to horizon. Against this vast armada stood the combined forces of the galaxy. Modern vessels of every species flying in formation with humanity's ancient guardians. On the flagship's bridge, Dr. Marcus watched as Guardian coordinated the defense. The AI's calm voice belied the enormity of what they faced. The Storm expects us to fight as separate forces. Instead, we will show them the power of unity. Admiral Reed nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes as he watched the tactical displays. The ancient fleet's weapons and our modern ship's maneuverability. They complement each other perfectly. As your ancestors intended, Guardian replied. Watch. A group of modern ships darted forward, their advanced engines allowing them to weave through the enemy formation. As the Storm's weapons tracked them, the ancient vessels struck. Reality-bending beams from the Storm's ships met quantum uncertainty cannons in mid-space, creating cascading reactions that swallowed entire squadrons of enemy vessels. Beautiful, Council Leader Thompson whispered from his position at the Strategic Command Console. Like a dance. The battle expanded across the star system. Modern ships used their superior speed to herd enemy vessels into carefully planned killing zones, where the ancient fleet's fundamental force weapons waited. When Storm ships tried to adapt, they found their advanced technology countered by the pure, simple principles the ancient humans had built into their vessels. We're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy, Peters reported from his communication station. Every species is watching this. They're calling it the Legacy Battle. Guardian's voice held a note of pride. Your ancestors believed this moment would come. Not just the battle, but the unity. The understanding. Look there. Through the bridge windows, they watched as a Centaurian cruiser, its hull breached and engines failing, was caught in the grip of an ancient vessel's tractor beam. Instead of trying to pull the ship to safety, the ancient vessel merged its hull with the damaged cruiser, their combined forms stronger than either ship alone. The power of adaptation, Guardian explained. These ships weren't built to fight alone. They were built to protect, to unite, to combine strength with strength. More ships began to merge, modern vessels joining with ancient ones, their technologies blending in ways that shouldn't have been possible. The Storm's forces found themselves facing an opponent that grew stronger with each passing moment, learning, adapting, combining the wisdom of ages with the innovation of the present. Your ancestors, Guardian said, left you more than just a fleet. They left you a template for survival. Not through dominance, not through technological superiority, but through unity, through understanding that true strength comes from working together. The storm's forces began to retreat, their consumption of 12 galaxies having taught them nothing about facing an enemy that fought with unity instead of pure power. As they fled back through their dimensional breaches, the combined fleet pursued, ensuring no fragment of the storm would remain to threaten future generations. Hours later, as the last enemy ships vanished and the star system returned to normal space, Marcus stood at the flagship's window. The fleet that had once been mocked as primitive now floated proudly alongside the modern vessels of a united galaxy. "What happens now?" Reed asked. Guardian's response filled not just the bridge, but all communication channels across the galaxy. "Now, children of Earth, you have a choice. Your ancestors left you this legacy not just of ships and technology, but of wisdom. They showed you that true advancement isn't about having the most powerful weapons or the fastest engines. It's about knowing when to set aside pride, when to work together, when to build something that will endure beyond your own time." The holographic displays showed scenes from across the galaxy, species that had once competed now working together, sharing resources and knowledge, understanding at last what humanity's ancestors had tried to teach them. "The storm is defeated," Guardian concluded, "but your true legacy is just beginning. Your ancestors believed that humanity would lead not through conquest or technological superiority, but by example, by showing the galaxy that wisdom, unity, and sacrifice are stronger than any weapon." They were right. As the combined fleet began its victory formation, the ancient vessels no longer looked primitive. They looked eternal, timeless, a bridge between past and future. Humanity had reclaimed its legacy, and in doing so, had helped forge a new future for all sentient life.